The India-US relationship is a very substantive relationship. We recently saw the visit of the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi to United States for the Quad Summit and various bilaterals, including with the US President Joe Biden. With me is Christopher Elms. He is the spokesperson of the US Embassy here in India. Welcome to WION.
Thanks for having me, Siddhant.
And starting with the first question on the Prime Minister's visit, he was in US, he was in Delaware for the Quad Summit, and United States hosted the Quad Summit. So what is the key focus for United States when it comes to the Quad, and what does the United States brings to the table when it comes to the Quad grouping?
Yeah, so the Quad is a grouping of 4 countries that are all bringing something to the table. This was the 4th ministerial meeting, fourth Quad Summit. They had already had a series of ministerial meetings at the foreign minister level, but over President Biden's term, he has hosted a number of meetings. Together, they've met 6 times, twice virtually. This was the 4th in-person meeting, and President Biden hosted it at his house, the first meeting that he's had with a foreign leader as president at his house, because of how seriously he takes this, how important it is to him, and how much he has elevated this institution. And so really this Quad Summit was about institutionalizing it. You saw in the note from the leaders at the end of the summit that the Quad is here to stay. This is something that has existed for quite some time, but over the past 2 presidencies, we've really elevated this. And it's about how the 4 democracies in the Indo-Pacific are delivering for their own peoples, but also for the region. And so you saw a number of great deliverables out of this, that our Coast Guards are going to meet, that we have increased maritime domain awareness across the Indo-Pacific, which means that we have better control of what we're seeing in our sea lanes. We saw that we're expanding the fellowship from the Quad to countries from ASEAN. And then I think a big thing for President Biden that Prime Minister Modi contributed to as well is the Quad Cancer Moonshot. That we're going to work together as a Quad to work towards the elimination of various cancers, starting with cervical cancer.
India is going to host the Quad Summit next year. This will be the first time India is going to host the summit, and we swapped the Quad Summit this time around. So essentially when it comes to the Quad grouping and India-US cooperation, how does the Americans plan to support the Indian summit that is going to take place here in India?
Yeah, India was very kind to swap with us this year. It was very difficult to find a time when all 4 leaders would be in the same place, and we're really happy that it worked out in the United States, and happy to have India host next year. The United States in general is very supportive of India's role throughout the region and throughout the world. The United States and India have never had a closer, more trusting partnership than we have right now, and part of that is our support for India as a global power. It is an important country already, and we know that that's going to continue to rise. And in the Quad, our countries represent over 1/3 of the world's GDP. So what we're doing is our countries are coming together with shared values, a shared vision, and we are coming together to help each other's peoples and the people around the region. And when India hosts next year, we're going to support that vision and those efforts as well.
Moving to the bilateral aspect, we saw the Indian Prime Minister meeting the US President Joe Biden in Delaware. Delaware is the home state for the US President as well. So essentially there was a lot of optics as well. So how do you see this relationship going forward? And we saw a very extensive joint statement. And what the key points that stood out was the semiconductors. If you can also elaborate on that bit.
Yeah, as you did see, it was a really, really substantial joint statement. After Prime Minister Modi's state visit to Washington last year, we had an extensive joint statement. This is just a continuation of it. And what it shows is when the Prime Minister visited, we didn't just say, that's it, we're done. That wasn't the high point in the relationship. That was a new floor. We continue to build on that with each successive meeting that our leaders have and that our senior officials have. And so what's next is actually right now that Foreign Minister Jaishankar is in Washington, D.C. Commerce Minister Goyal will be arriving today, I believe. He's going to have meetings with his counterparts. You see meetings that government officials from the Indian side are having with U.S. CEOs. So you're going to see continued expansion of our already strong and growing trade and investment relationship. You're going to see continued meetings of our militaries and training exercises together. And that's going to continue because you saw this in the statement that you referenced. that this is the defining partnership of the 21st century. President Biden often calls it the most consequential relationship in the world. And so part of the joint statement did talk about semiconductors and our joint effort towards semiconductor fabrication to support our armed forces in both countries. This is a pretty big deal. As major defense partners, to be able to be engaging more in increased sales, increased co-production, increased exercises, and now taking that to the next level in terms of technology. A lot of the joint statement was about how we're elevating this partnership through new technologies.
It's being termed as the India nuclear deal, India US nuclear deal movement. But at the heart of this relationship, the substratum of this relationship is the people-to-people relationship. There's a huge Indian diaspora. We saw the Indian Prime Minister's diaspora address, and he has been having successive big diaspora events. So if we can talk about the role the Indian diaspora is playing in the United States.
Yep. I work for the US government. I would love to say that our governments are behind what's bringing our countries together, but it's not. It is, as you say, it is the people. There are over 4 million Indian Americans in the United States, and they're a bridge between our countries. They're a bridge on the educational side, where you're seeing more and more Indians studying in the United States. Over a quarter of international students in the US are Indian. You see this on the economic side. You've got over a dozen Fortune 500 companies led by Indian Americans. And you see this on the travel that's happening between our countries, where we're setting records for more Indians coming to the United States than ever before. And so what you see, and you'll continue to see, is how this bridge between our nations is being carried out by our people, and that's going to continue to grow.
You are at the US Embassy, so talking about the visa system, in terms of the requests you have been having, in terms of how much the inflow has increased for you. There were certain issues as well. How have you resolved them, if you can talk about that?
Yeah, so basically what happened is during COVID, we had to shut down operations, and it took some time to build back up. And so the demand, which is a wonderful thing for the United States, the demand from Indian citizens to come to the United States is just skyrocketing. And so as we built up our resources, we've been adding more appointments. And just over the past week, we've just added another 250,000 new appointments. A 250,000 new appointments to meet this demand. We've added officers. We're doing more back office work in Washington rather than here at the embassy. And so across the mission, we're opening slots, and you're seeing the time to get an appointment go down.
My last question to you is, it's a substantive relationship, but in every substantive relationship there are irritants. We know the irritants on the two sides. It's well known, it's covered in the media. How do you see they being straightened out?
So, as you say, in any relationship, whether it's between countries, between family members, between friends, the closer you are, the more irritants you're going to have. And it's a product of the maturity of our relationship now that we're able to deal with these irritants. If you don't have irritants, it's because you're breaking off the relationship. We are going to work through these irritants. We're going to work through the challenges together in a way that benefits both of our peoples. I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but you're going to continue to see areas where we disagree, and that's perfectly fine. We have a common vision for the world. We are two large, vocal democracies with political parties on both sides that have a lot of opinions. That's going to continue over time, and as our relationship gets closer, we're going to continue to work through them. And so I'm not too concerned about us working through the irritants. The foreign minister said recently at an event with our ambassador that when it comes to the US and India, the street has spoken. The people want a closer relationship between the United States and India, and it's the duty of our governments to make that happen.
Well, on that note, thank you so much for speaking to WION, Christopher.
Thank you so much, Siddhant.